What is going on? This is Mike Clark, Kill Procrastination. We have a very, very exciting interview today. We have the CEO of Elevate Commercial Investment Group. Not only that, CEO of JNT Construction, Mr. George. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I was very excited for that. I know this has been a long time coming. I really appreciate you taking your time out to sit down and talk with me, especially with the guests I also have. So, man, I'm just so excited. So I'm gonna jump right into it. Can you just go into like a small bio of yourself?
Yep. So, man, I was born and raised in South Florida, Miami. Um, Went to FIU, so University in Miami. Studied to be electrical engineer, only because I've always been really good at numbers, and that seemed like the logical choice. But I didn't want to be an engineer, and I realized that a couple years into it, I wanted to build something larger. I wanted to be a business owner. And real estate was always kind of in my life. I had an uncle that owned a couple apartments, and then um, every time I went and I did research on successful individuals, real estate was always involved. Either they built their wealth off real estate or they took it to the next level using real estate. So started looking into that while I was still going to college, and then um, hired a coach. And as soon as I did that, a couple months into it, I was already doing some deals. By that time, I had graduated and I was working in UPS in their engineering department, but while doing the real estate side hustle at the same time. And then about a year into that, I was doing enough where I quit. That was about 15 years ago, and have been doing real estate full time since. Started with single family, um, done a little bit and a lot of everything. Small multi, seller finance, wholesales, fix and flips. Really like the fix and flips, and that's when I started the construction company. So
Okay.
to scale, I got burned by a couple contractors while I was trying to scale and you know start doing high volume. And it wasn't until I started the construction company and brought it in house that I was able to do that. So on a high note, we're probably averaging maybe 50 fixes and flips a year, plus another same or more in wholesales. And um, at some point, so about 5 years ago or so, I found myself spread pretty thin and had a lot going on. Construction company was blowing up, and I had a roofing division within the construction company that was also blowing up. And then I had like no time
Yeah.
at all. So, and around the same time, I got introduced to multifamily syndications. And before that, I didn't know. I figured whoever was buying these apartments was these private equity firms or just had a ton of money. Um, and once I realized that you can syndicate it and you can bring these investors together and take down the apartments in that fashion, man, I was 100% sold. Kind of went down the same path I did with single family. I hired a coach right away and started focusing 100% on multifamily. I stopped doing anything to do with single family. Um, Not that I suggest doing that, because multi does take a little bit longer to get going and actually start getting money coming in. But luckily, I had the construction company that was kind of already running, and that was bringing me income while I was getting the multifamily started.
That's awesome. Now, George, I want to go back into what you said. You hired a coach, and I know most people when they get started, they just like to go the hard knock road where they go through it. So they'll go ahead and throw their money into a property, think they're going to be able to fix it up. All these things, all these little issues that can happen. But can you talk about how hiring a coach maybe has saved you that headache?
Yeah, no, I mean it absolutely did. Still made some mistakes here and there along the road, but I definitely learned from some of theirs. And look, anybody can do this, right? Anybody. It's how long you're gonna do it, and how many mistakes are you gonna make along the
Yeah,
way. A coach reduces that. A good coach will make that timeline shorter, and they'll try to make sure you don't make those same mistakes. Um, So it's up to you, especially now. There's so much content and so many things you can learn just from YouTube. Or I guess, would I get a coach again? Probably. If not, I would maybe at the minimum try to find how I can add value to somebody that's already doing what I want to be doing at a high level, and bring that value to them, and at least learn. And in that sense, you're still getting a coach, right? You're just maybe not paying for it. You're bringing value
facts. Yeah,
instead.
yeah. Now, so you're in school, but did you start the construction company while you're in school or transitioning out of school, or when did that start?
No, so I mean, I think I'm trying to think back. So I got my realtor's license and my mortgage broker license because I didn't know any better, and I thought, at least I'm learning something with real estate.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was doing those deals while I was going to school. I was listing houses and getting mortgages and stuff, originating mortgages. But I was not investing, not till I graduated. And then the construction company didn't come till a few years after that. Like once I was already full-time investor, then I started the construction company.
Wow. Okay. So I want to go ahead and just transition right into syndication, because we talked about that, and that's where you stopped at. Is so for the listeners, for the people who are coming onto this channel, because this show, I don't really talk too much about syndication. I do have some knowledge on it, but I've never really explained it to my audience. Can you just go into it in your, you know, can
Yeah.
you define it the way you would, please?
Yeah. So, I mean, I try to define it pretty simple, right? You get a group of individuals together, investors, and you pool the money together, and that's what you use to buy the apartments. And those investors are going to be limited partners. They're going to have shares, but they're not going to be voting on what to do, or they're not going to play a role in the day to day. That's
Okay.
for your general partners or deal sponsor team, whatever you want to call it, that are making the day to day decisions.
Okay. Now that totally sounds simple. Now, is it difficult to start, or is it simple to start?
A syndication?
Yeah, syndication. Yes.
I mean, the process of doing it is pretty simple. I mean, you hire an SEC attorney to draft up your paperwork, and then you got to go raise the equity. That part I don't think is simple. I mean, that's a process. Um, Depends on who you know, and if you have that network. If you don't, I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, I've been learning about syndications for a while. I've still have yet to pull the trigger on even trying to get started on that, because at that point right there, like, who do you know? And I've heard you talk about it many times, that you went to live events to find, a lot of your investors. A lot of people that come in, and it's a networking piece. I'm prior military. I know you don't know my background, but I'm prior military. I'm also an introvert. I really don't like getting out there and talking to people, but that's really what stopped me from doing syndication so far. But I'm trying to put myself out there more and more, just so I
Yes,
can
I don't know if
accomplish.
you've heard me say this before, but I mean, I am naturally an introvert for sure. Like, before I started doing multifamily investing, even when I was doing the single family, you don't really, to me, single family, you don't really have to build that many relationships, and you don't have to put yourself out there so much. But for multifamily, I feel like it's still a very relationship based business, and man, I step into the uncomfortable every day. That's kind of speaking at these events, going to these networking events. That is not um, where I feel comfortable. It's not, but I know it's what I need to do to accomplish my goals. So I get it done, and it gets easier and easier every time.
Now, how did you overcome that fear, like getting out of that introvert world?
Man, it it's tough, man. Um, I think I just had a really strong why, and I just let that take over. Like, and then a lot of mindset. So a lot of I read a lot. Well, listen to a lot of books now, mainly.
Got you.
um, and it's just a lot of mindset. I don't let it get to my head, which is what I used to do. I think somebody just said it to me the other day, actually, because I shared the stage with Eric Thomas at an event recently, and um, I said something along the lines of, yeah, I didn't belong anywhere near um, Eric Thomas as far as on the stage, and uh, that individual told me that's not true, man. Like you've put you've put the work in, you've put the time, and you do belong. Like, don't tell yourself that. And it's true. A lot of it is you've got to have the right mindset going into things.
No doubt, no doubt. And now, we talked about the syndication. I guess I want to transition and pivot right into you get the syndication. Of course, now you have to find a deal. Of course, all that good stuff. So once you get the deal, you acquire it. You get the syndication, formed, and however you want to have it set up. I mean, project management. How are you? A lot of the projects that I've seen you've done, you always have a plan of what are you going to do to add value to a project. How do you get that done, and how is that project management being controlled by you as a CEO?
Yeah. So years of coming up with systems and procedures, and then finding that team, um, and training them to think like investors, not necessarily like a construction company or a project manager that's just there to do a job. They look at everything and they realize, budget wise, if I'm going to spend this much, what's the return on investment? Or every day a unit is not up and leasable, that's money that we're losing. So one is finding the team, training them, and then making sure you have the systems, um, and then a lot of upfront work. So what I mean by that is we spend a lot of the time before we even swing a hammer, making sure everything is in line, everything's planned out, and then when the time comes to actually do the work, it goes smooth.
So during the project management, are you breaking these? Because like I said, these are huge, huge apartment complexes you're buying. So how are you, I guess, phasing the project? Because I know it could be overwhelming, but I know there has to be some sort of system where you're doing it piece by piece. So could you break that down a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, look, most of our business plans are some type of renovations on the exterior, some type of deferred maintenance. So, hardening the property, whether it's replacing ACs, roofs, whatever's not cosmetic, essentially. And then the interior units. I mean, it's essentially those three components. Um, we first want to take care of anything that could further damage the property. So, I mean, if there's roofs that are leaking, we're going to make sure to get,
Gotcha.
dry in the property. If there's anything that's not safe, if security wise, we want to make sure that the property is secure, and the existing residents feel safe where they're at. So, if we got to fix some gates, put in some cameras, whatever it is, we take care of that first. And then we start working on the curb appeal and what's going to drive in the traffic, which is usually, the exterior paint, or if we're doing new signage, those kind of things. And that is being done alongside the interior unit upgrades.
Wow. Okay. Got it. Good. I smile because that's exactly what I'm doing. And like I said, I'm nowhere near your size, right? But that's the mindset that I have is immediately, stop the bleeding, of course. Just something leaking, fix it. Security wise, if something doesn't look right, fix that part first. And that's why I tell a lot of people who at least ask me questions about, getting started, especially with older homes, older buildings, whatever. Like, look, it's gonna have problems, but fix that part first and then start going from there. I know I skipped a part where we should talk about due diligence because I know that part takes, that's a play in how you actually set up your project management. Could you talk about due diligence? When you're vetting these properties.
Yeah. So that's some of the upfront work that I was mentioning.
Okay.
So we're very we take the due diligence inspection period um, and really dig in and get detailed, and that's essentially when we're building our scope for the capex and finalizing it. So we walk every single unit. We check all the major components. So mention the roof. We scope the plumbing lines. We check all the boilers or chillers or AC units. Um, Foundation, if that needs to get checked, we check it. Drainage. All the major stuff gets looked at, documented, and accompanied by an estimate of what it's going to take to fix it. And then at the same time, the renovations. We get numbers, hard numbers on all those items as well. So by the time we're done with due diligence, we know exactly what it's going to cost us to um, fix everything and also upgrade the property.
So, because I want my listeners and everybody else to understand, because I follow you very closely on Instagram, a lot of your platforms, and I know there's some big units, like I think 200 plus unit you talked about, and you said you walked each and every unit.
Yeah,
Man,
I mean, we've done
wow.
a
How long does
1,300
that take?
unit. We've done a 1,300 unit portfolio, and we walked every single unit. That one took a week, but I mean, we just did a 200 unit one and knocked it out in one day.
So, question. So the sellers, how do they feel about that when you taking that time to go through each unit? Because I know they're like, man, I don't know what their mindset is, but I can only imagine how quickly it's going to take for you to get this done.
I mean, it's pretty standard. I mean, some cut corners and maybe don't do every single unit, but they got to give us access to it. I mean, it's part of the contract. So if anything, it just comes down to how many personnel they need on site. So, and we're pretty good with that. We don't ask for too many, as long as usually one person can go and start opening a couple doors ahead of time. So we usually have about maybe 4 walkthroughs. Depends how big the site is.
Okay. Now I want to transition into how are you locating your deals? And I guess before that is I think the big topic is COVID, coming out of COVID, and how you see the real estate market currently.
So finding deals, it's a good mixture of brokers bringing us deals. Um, we'll look at stuff that's listed if we have a relationship with the broker. But mainly we're getting a lot of off market stuff, and then also got a lot of other investors bringing us deals to help them, partner with them on it and help them get it closed. It's probably about 50-50 of that.
Okay. So I want to go into I've watched a lot of your podcast interviews, and a lot of people go into like your best deals, things like that of that nature. But I want to go into maybe not necessarily your worst deal, but a deal that you actually had some sort of problem or something you had to overcome. Could you talk about that type of a deal?
Yeah, I mean, I can probably the hardest deal um, I've had to close at least was during COVID. So, well, before COVID, right before COVID, we were set to close on on 850 unit property in OKC. And man, I remember, so I feel like COVID became real once the NBA shut down.
Yeah,
I don't know if
that's
you
what I
remember that
felt.
day, but
Yeah.
I was we were actually out visiting a property of that 1,300 unit portfolio. Actually, where I was checking on the capex for that project, and that's when that happened. Well, we were set to close 2 weeks from that day on that large property, that 850 unit one. And first to go was the debt. The debt backed out maybe a few days after that. They were just like, "Hey, we're not lending right
Yeah.
now." And then we had a large equity partner that was coming in and taking a big chunk of the raise on that one. They stuck with us for a bit, and we started looking for different lenders, and man, we finally pieced something together. This was like months into this now. A couple extensions in, like we had paid for an extension or several extensions, and we found an option, and we needed the seller to give a little, and man, he was not giving. So that kind of, it fell out of contract eventually. And then we kind of stuck with it even out of contract. And we were towards the end of 2020, we were able to kind of piece it back together, and the seller was still wanting to sell the property. So we got it back under contract, and we ended up closing on it. It still took, I think, like 6 months from there to close, because, and that wasn't on us. That was on what we negotiated with the seller. They needed to get the occupancy up to a certain point.
Okay.
But we got it done. I mean, we were set to lose about $750,000 on that deal if we didn't. So, it really taught us something about being persistent, and just kind of, we had to completely restructure the deal from the first time we had it under contract for it to make sense the second time. And it's looking like a home run now. We're about to refi on it and get a massive tax credit on it, and actually cash out all of our investors, or return their capital in less than a year. So I mean, it's,
Wow.
yeah,
That's very resilient. I mean, to go through having it under contract, the pandemic, of course, and then coming back in and actually being able to close that deal. I mean, that shows that you're resilient, your team's resilient, because a lot of people, of course, they give up. But I mean, you're doing it at such a high level. I'm pretty sure at some point in your mind, like, we're going to be able to come back to this deal.
yeah. And we had something else to learn there was we had built really good rapport with the seller as well.
Okay.
We always try to get in front of the seller if we can. I know there's brokers involved, and brokers are great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it pays off sometimes when you can build that rapport with the seller too.
That's true. That is true. So, George, what's the future look like for your company?
Man, like how far in the future?
Give me like 5 years.
Yeah, 5 year. I'm trying to build, or I'm gonna build something big here. Goal by the end of this year is to have acquired over 10,000 units. I want to start holding more of the properties. We've built and structured a few like that, but I want to get to 100,000 units, man. Like I want to build something that's going to be here once I'm gone, and that generational type wealth that my children and their children and
Yes.
whoever else can enjoy.
Well, you know what? I'm going to up my goal because I'm like at 100 units. So I'm definitely going to bump it up. That's going to be the ultimate goal for me, of course. I'm going to do the same.
Nice. I like it.
And I did want to just, I guess, sidebar, because I've been through all my questions. I appreciate you taking your time out. But like you said earlier, you were working with Eric Thomas. I did have a question of how's that going? How's that rapport going with him? Just working with him. Like,
Well, I'm not. I wish I was working with him. So
okay,
we were just speaking at the same event.
okay.
So man, he's something special, man. He's got so much energy and the right mindset. So a lot of mindset. But yeah, not working with him. I would love to.
No, that's dope. I mean, he's one of my favorite public speakers, man. He's one of the people that gets me out of bed in the morning, of course,
Yeah.
because he just, like you said, a lot of energy.
Mhm.
But I really appreciate you coming on, George. I really do. Taking the time out. I was really, really looking forward to this, so I'm glad you were able to make it. I'm going to make sure in the description box, all your information is going to be plugged in so people can follow you, of course. Do you have anything that you want to add to, or anything that we have missed?
No, I mean, I will say if your listeners want to shoot me an email, so my email is George or Jorge. It's actually spelled Jorge, Jorge at elevatecig.com. They mentioned the podcast, man. I'll send them over. I've got like a vault of free content that I can send over.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Once again, thank you for coming on.
All right.